I already told you once, Jackson. It's not happening.
I pushed my tray of food towards the hulking figure across from me.
I'll keep my payments like we agreed.
Jackson took the oatmeal from the tray and lifted it high above his head. The slop crawled out from the styrofoam bowl like a slug and found a new home in the giant's mouth.
You're gonna waste away in here, Miller,
Jackson said as he began eating the watery eggs left on the plate.
You know we could make your life a lot easier. I'll be out soon,
I told him, trying to ignore the pangs of hunger in my stomach. Jackson let out a roar of laughter.
What makes you think that? I'm innocent. Funny, ain't it? Hundreds of prisoners here, but we're all innocent. Not a damn one of us did anything wrong.
Jackson slid the tray back across the table towards me.
You ain't special, Miller. Keep up the act if you want, but you're a piece of criminal just like the rest of us.
I didn't answer, but kept my head down and eyes to the floor. Jackson seemed to be in a decent mood today, and I wasn't in any condition to press my luck. The enforcer put his hands to the table and stood up. He put a cigarette to his mouth as he loomed over me like an asteroid falling down to Earth. The threat was there in the distance, but no one really knew when it would strike.
All I'm saying is think about it, Miller,
Jackson said as he lit the cigarette.
I want to be on the same team. Help me, help you. Yeah, I will. Good.
With that, Jackson and his goons were on to the next victim. I breathed a sigh of relief and began to pick at the remnants of my breakfast. The sterile gray walls looked out on the common room with the same indifference as the guards. Jackson ran the cell block here. I learned that on my first day in. The biscuit on the tray in front of me was dry and rough, so I dipped it into the coffee that came out with every meal. I heard the eerie synchronized cadence that ricocheted against the cold concrete blocks as Jackson and his crew made the rounds collecting payments and making deals. My fingers unconsciously traced the outlines of the tray before me. The prison had a gloom that seemed to seep from the walls and cling to everyone in sight. The gray paint that surrounded us was an institution that stood tall and unyielding. It provided no comfort from the harsh reality we all found ourselves in. The lights that flickered overhead hummed loud enough to almost drive a man mad. Tables stretched out across the common room. Each carried tales of abuse, desperation, and fleeting camaraderie. Inmates gathered in the corners where they whispered and exchanged secrets while their eyes darted towards the guards. I turned my attention back to the scraps in front of me and took a bite of the stale biscuit. Cold coffee dribbled from my lips as I tried to swallow what might as well have been sand. My mind wandered as I mechanically consumed the little food I had. Jackson's words were heavy on my mind. I knew he was right. I wouldn't last much longer sitting on the fence. A distant clang of cell doors reverberated through the room and drew my attention upwards. A set of prisoners navigated the narrow path between tables and raced towards the noise. A subtle, unspoken code dictated their movements. In this forsaken place, survival demanded vigilance. Alliances were made and broken on a daily basis. I could make out the fleshy thumps and screams of protest coming from one of the cells above me. I turned my head away, thankful that I wasn't on the receiving end of the punishment. The guards would step in soon. I allowed my thoughts to drift to the outside, a world untainted by the animalistic nature of my fellow inmates seemed so distant. The silent vow I made months ago echoed within me. I would survive. I would navigate the perilous terrain of prison politics, keep my head down, and leave with my integrity intact. One way or another, the truth would emerge, and when it did, I would walk out of here a vindicated man. I picked my tray up and returned it to the wash rack. I could see one of the guards moving towards the overhead PA system. A horn blared before his voice came out over the intercom.
All prisoners return to your cells immediately. Lockdown in progress.
I joined the slow shuffle of those returning to their rooms. When I got back to mine, my cellmate Larry sat on the bottom bunk. Larry was a mouse of a man with an ear that was half missing.
Hey there, Miller,
he said as he crinkled his nose.
Getting a little wild out there, huh?
Yeah, I think someone got jumped upstairs.
I bet it was Billy. He borrowed some cigarettes and didn't have the money on his books to pay Big Man back.
That's why I do my best not to owe anyone favors in here. I walked to the small pile of books in the corner and picked one up at random. Larry touched the remains of his ear.
They'll get it from you one way or another. I tried to tell Billy it was a bad idea.
He's a grown man. He made the decision, and now he has to live with it. I shuffled to the top bunk. My voice was cold, but I didn't mean for it to be. The time in this place had left me indifferent to the fate of others.
I guess you ain't wrong,
Larry went on. He never caught the hint that I wasn't the talkative type.
What about you? You made up your mind yet?
I'm not getting caught up in all of Jackson's Brotherhood bullshit. That's a one-way ticket to a life sentence.
I know you said you'll be out soon,
but it's worth considering.
Jackson ain't one to extend an offer like that.
Larry started to pilfer through his snacks as he spoke.
Whether we like it or not, he runs this block.
The gang stuff just isn't for me. I was an investment banker, for God's sake. I shouldn't even be in here. I put the book in front of my nose, hoping that Larry would drop the conversation.
You know, I bet that's why he's after you,
Larry said as he popped the chip into his mouth.
Needs someone to help with all the paperwork. A lawyer can't do it all.
Yeah, well, Jackson is going to have to realize he can't always get what he wants. I threw the book back to the pile and rolled over to face the wall. I'm going to try to get some more sleep.
I'll holler at you when they open the floor back up. Sweet dreams, Miller.
I didn't respond to Larry as I let sleep take me.
Judy! Judy!
I screamed, reaching out to her in desperation as water rolled out of the tub.
Please, no!
My eyes snapped open, and I gasped for air as if I had been the one submerged in a porcelain tomb. The thin blue mat beneath me was welcomed as it grounded me back to reality. Sweat coated my face, my heart raced, and the weight of despair pressed down on my chest. My hands tangled in my hair, clutching desperately as the haunting image of Judy in that tub refused to fade. The pain of loss, fresh as the day had happened, consumed me.
Bad dream again, huh?
Larry's reflection looked at me from the mirror we both shared. I tried to slow my breathing while he spit out the backwash from brushing his teeth.
Yeah, I'll be all right though.
I jumped down from the bed and went to the small cardboard box where I kept the most important of my belongings. I trembled as I dug around the court documents and old photos.
Can I get a moment alone here, Larry? Sure, not a problem,
he said as he wiped his mouth.
The floor is clear now. I'll see you down there.
I nodded, and he left our room. The picture of me and Judy on our wedding day cut me to my core, but I couldn't look away from it. Her green eyes were so full of life. The photo reminded me of the promises I made to her on that day. I stood before Judy and the whole world and swore to cherish her and always keep her safe. I had never been a liar, but I suppose our wedding vows made me one. Here I was, locked in a cell, haunted by the one moment I couldn't protect her. A heavy tapping on the cell door brought me back to reality. I wiped the vulnerability from my face and was surprised to see a guard standing there when I turned around.
Come on, Miller. We have some badges that need to talk to you.
What? Who is it? I asked.
Don't know.
The guard chewed gum while he spoke.
But they sure seem important. The warden welcomed them personally. Feds, maybe?
Well, what do they want with me?
Do I look like your secretary, Miller? Why don't you turn around and slip these good boy bracelets on and we'll both find out.
The guard held up a pair of handcuffs, and I obliged his request. I could feel all eyes on me as I was escorted from our block. Word travels fast in a prison. and I could only imagine the stories being cooked up on my behalf. The corridor outside our cell block seemed colder, and the air had a sterile, almost clinical smell to it. The guard's shoes clicked rhythmically as we went down the halls. I shuffled alongside him, doing my best to keep up with his quick pace. As the two of us neared the interrogation room, I felt heaviness in the pit of my stomach. A murmur of hushed voices became audible as we approached. I could make out the silhouette of the warden through the frosted glass. It was unusual to see him outside his office. I slowed my pace, trying to make out the other figures. Two distinct shadows stood beside him. Both were unfamiliar. The warden seemed different. He was usually a figure of authority and reserved, but I could see him nervously adjust his tie. And he laughed a tad too loudly at something one of the figures said. The doors opened, and I got my first clear view of the pair. One was a tall, lanky man with a stern face, and the other, a woman with auburn hair, pulled back tightly into a bun. The two of them wore crisp, pressed suits that contrasted the grimy walls of the prison.
Miller,
the man began, offering his hand.
I am Agent Schmidt, and this is Agent Warren. We would like to discuss the circumstances leading up to your arrest.
I stared at him blankly and jiggled the handcuffs that bound me from behind. Agent Schmidt pulled his hand back with a twinge of embarrassment.
Right, my apologies.
He gestured towards the warden.
Will you kindly release our friend so that we can speak on equal terms? We have protocol here, we can't just uncuff him.
The guard at my side protested.
Oh, but we can,
the warden said as he snatched the keys from the guard's belt.
Excuse my colleague. He's not privy to situations like this.
The warden took the handcuffs off of me and handed them back to the guard.
Why don't you wait outside until we're finished? You're going to leave a prisoner here unattended?
The guard looked around as if he were trying to figure out if this was some kind of test.
That's against protocol too. Don't worry about it,
the warden told him as he pushed him out the door.
If you two need anything else, please let me know. Cameras are off as you requested.
The warden flashed us a smile and then stepped outside, where he began to berate the guard. I felt a knot tie in my stomach. I was deep in uncharted territory. The idea of asking for my lawyer crossed my mind, but something told me the agents were well beyond his capabilities. Agent Schmidt extended his hand again.
Sorry about all the fuss,
he told me.
We're here to help.
I took his hand like a mouse, testing a piece of unattended cheese. Please have a seat, Agent Warren told me as she pulled a chair out from the table.
It is our understanding you hold a fondness for dark beer,
the man told me.
We brought you some.
I looked at the glass bottles sitting on the table. I hadn't even noticed them before. Wisps of chilled air danced around their frames, and I suddenly felt a dryness in my throat. How long had it been since I felt the bite of a cold beer? I went to the chair and sat down. The whole situation reeked of a setup, but I couldn't figure it out. I took one of the bottles and twisted the cap off. The cool liquid hit my throat, and I was transported back to a hot summer day on the lake with Judy.
We know you're innocent, Miller.
Agent Schmidt's voice caught me off guard, and I spit the beer out in surprise.
You what?
I asked, gasping for air.
You just said what? We know that you didn't kill Judy, and we will get you out of here soon.
The smile on his face was so sincere, I thought I must be dreaming. Are you familiar with the SCP Foundation, Miller? Agent Warren asked me.
No, I've never heard of that.
I was trembling in my seat.
Wait, so does this mean you know who killed Judy?
I felt tears well up in my eyes and turned to hide my face in shame.
We'll get to that.
Agent Schmidt seemed to produce a handkerchief out of nowhere and handed it to me. I dabbed at my eyes and he squeezed my shoulder like an old friend.
We just have a few questions.
Agent Warren joined me at the table and set out a binder filled with documents. She pulled a photo from one of the folders and held it up.
Do you recognize this home, Miller? Yeah, it's the house me and Judy bought.
So you two are with the SCP Foundation? Correct. Agent Schmidt and I are here representing the Foundation. Our job is to protect the public from anomalies, if you will. We set things right that have gone awry. So are you feds then? I wiped my face again with the handkerchief. I felt like I was drinking information from a fire hose.
Sort of. Our organization operates internationally.
Agent Schmidt said as he sat down next to his partner.
Just know that we're here to help. It will all make sense shortly.
I need you to walk us through the night that Judy died. I felt my heartbeat quicken. The memories that I battled with every time I slept came charging at me. A silence followed Agent Warren's question as I tried to collect myself.
It's okay, Miller. Take your time. We know it's not easy to relive such a traumatic event.
Agent Schmidt smiled at me, like we were old war buddies. I pushed the palms of my hands down along the legs of the orange jumpsuit I wore. Sweat poured out of my pores, and I could feel it bead up on the end of my nose.
Well, Judy and I, we just bought the house there. We hadn't been married long and nothing but dreams and a full life ahead of us. The home was a blank canvas for us to paint our lives on. That's what Judy used to tell me when I was on the fence about buying it. The math wasn't right to make the purchase. Not on our incomes, but she knew how to break me.
I let out a small chuckle as I thought about my wife.
She would always get her way given enough time.
Agent Warren began scribbling notes on a piece of paper in front of her.
The two of us were so excited the day we moved in. It was hot. I remember both of us being just dog-tired after unloading the U-Haul. I think I had to change clothes 3 or 4 times before we were done. I told Judy that I would get the last few boxes while she went upstairs to take a bath. Her mom had gotten her some of those soaking salts, and she was really excited to try them.
I stopped and took a swig of the bottle that sat beside me, hoping that it might be enough to numb me, even just a little.
Please continue.
I could sense a tinge of irritation in Agent Warren's voice.
I took one of the last boxes in, and I could hear Judy upstairs filling up the bath. I went back out to grab another box, and the neighbor stopped me. He was just introducing himself and asking where we were from and all that. I told him we weren't from Ohio, and he was giving me a rundown of the town from a local's perspective. Harmless stuff. I finally got away from him, and when I got back into the house, I heard a commotion upstairs.
A commotion? Can you elaborate? Agent Warren's eyes narrowed at me. I took a deep breath and felt a slow anger rise up within me.
I thought you said you knew I was innocent. This is starting to feel an awful lot like when I was talking to the detectives from the state.
Agent Schmidt reached across the table and tapped my hand.
I know it's difficult, but we just need to confirm our theory. Agent Warren doesn't mean to sound accusatory. We just want to get the details right.
I put my head in my hands and rubbed my eyes again. I hated to relive these moments, but the hope of clearing my name pushed me forward.
It sounded like someone was attacking Judy. The sound was her struggling in the tub. I think she was trying to get away.
My voice broke, and a few whimpers escaped my mouth before I could stop them. I pulled my gaze away from the agents.
This is a heavy memory, Miller. Do not feel shame for showing emotion. We know you care deeply for her.
Agent Schmidt reached into his jacket pocket and fished out a fresh handkerchief. He handed it to me with a smile.
Proceed when you're ready.
I let a few soft sobs fall into the cloth and then blew my nose.
She was screaming for help. She was begging for it to stop. I threw the box down without even thinking about it and ran up the stairs. I remember water rolling down the steps as I went up, like she had left it on. Judy was calling out to me. She begged for me to save her.
I slammed my fist against the table and slumped over. The tears fell out of me like rain.
The door was locked. Judy never locked the bathroom when she was in there. I kicked and threw my shoulder into the door until it flew open.
My voice began to quiver again.
I knew it was too late because she wasn't screaming anymore. The last thing I heard was a gasp, and then gurgling. Whatever it was attacking her shoved her head into the water, and she never came up.
But when I finally got in there, nobody was there. Just to be clear, you're saying no one was in the room besides Judy?
Agent Warren didn't look up from her notes as she spoke.
It was just her. The bathroom didn't have any windows either. The only way in and out was through the door I broke down. And what happened next? Well, I ran to her and pulled her out of the tub. The water was still running. I started to try and do CPR, but she just wasn't there. All the light was gone from her eyes. Have you ever had to look into the eyes of someone you love after they're dead? It stays with you. You can't outrun it. It's not like seeing them in the casket when they look like they're just sleeping. Please try to stick to the facts.
Come on, Agent Warren. That's a little uncalled for.
Agent Schmidt shot back at her.
You don't have to be so far removed that you don't feel empathy for the man.
We have a job to do, Schmidt. You know that as well as I do.
Please forgive my colleague, Miller. She can come across as callous at times. Professional to a fault, that one.
He shot her a disapproving glance.
Go ahead when you're ready.
I reached out for another one of the bottles and emptied it in a single swig.
Judy had marks around her neck, like handprints, but they were big, way bigger than my hands. I noticed them when I was pulling her out of the tub. I'm not sure how long I tried to bring her back, but the next thing I knew, police officers were storming up the stairs.
I wiped the tears away from my eyes.
Those bastards didn't even let me cover her up before they threw me to the ground and slapped the handcuffs on. I didn't get to say goodbye.
I pulled the handkerchief to my face and fell into a fit of sobs again.
It's okay, Miller. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. Is there anything else?
The neighbor is the one that called the police. He heard Judy screaming. I don't know that it matters, but that's all that I can think of. I told everyone I was innocent, but I knew what it looked like. It wasn't hard for them to get a conviction.
I ran my fingers through my hair as I tried to recall anything else.
Oh, I remember one of the detectives told me the tub was empty when they arrived, but I never pulled the plug.
The two agents eyed each other knowingly at my last statement. Agent Warren shuffled through the stack of papers in her binder. She pulled out 5 photographs and handed them to me.
What are these?
I asked as I took them. She only nodded in response. I looked the photos over. All of them were pictures of different bathtubs.
This was our tub,
I told the agents as I held up one of the photos.
the white porcelain one with the steel legs. Judy was so excited to have a freestanding one. Our real estate agent told us it had just been installed when the previous owner renovated.
Well, I think that settles it. Wouldn't you agree?
Agent Schmidt looked to his partner for a response.
I would.
Agent Warren said as she shut her binder.
He's an innocent man. You mean you believe me?
The air caught in my lungs. I had spent months fighting to prove my innocence, and the relief of someone finally believing me overwhelmed me.
We do.
Agent Schmidt stood up and began to pace around the room.
The bathtub in your home was an anomaly.
Huh? What do you mean?
As we mentioned earlier, we're with the SCP Foundation. The Foundation is an organization that operates in secrecy. We locate, contain, and protect the world from things that aren't supposed to exist. Things that defy our understanding of reality. Anomalies.
I'm still not sure that I understand. There are objects, creatures, and even phenomena out there.
Agent Warren said as she began to pack up her things.
If left unchecked, they could cause untold harm or disrupt the everyday operations of the world. It would seem like you know this all too well.
Your bathtub, it seems, was one such anomaly.
Agent Schmidt continued.
We believe it had properties that are beyond the ordinary. Properties that might be connected to the tragedy you experienced. Before the bathtub was installed in your home, it was at a residence in southern Ohio. The previous home had an incredibly high rate of suicide and murder, all by drowning. Our agency was made aware of this, but when Agent Warren and I arrived, the home was demolished and the tub was gone.
We were looking through court records for incidents that matched some of the previous deaths when we found out about you and Judy.
Agent Warren lit a cigarette as she spoke.
The case seemed like the exact scenario we were looking for, so we decided to pay you a visit. And you confirmed all our suspicions. We have already sent a team out to your old home to secure the tub so that no one else will have to suffer like you and your late wife.
I felt a ringing deep within my ears as I tried to process what I was hearing.
So you're saying the bathtub was haunted? It might be the easiest way to think of it that way,
Agent Warren said with bored indifference.
How have I never heard about all of this? Most of the world is unaware of these anomalies and our operations, and for good reason. It's our duty to shield humanity from the unexplainable and potentially dangerous.
Agent Schmidt approached me and put his hand on my shoulder.
In this case, we believe you were an unintended victim of one of these anomalies, and we caught it too late. I want to personally apologize.
The weight of his words sank in slowly. Every court hearing, every night in that cold cell, every instance I doubted my own sanity all led to this moment.
I don't understand. None of this makes sense.
I started to pinch myself, but Agent Schmidt caught my hand.
All you need to know is that we're going to make some calls, and you'll be out of here soon.
He smiled at me.
It's over, Miller. You're going home, an innocent man.
I collapsed on the floor and hugged the agent's waist like I owed him my life. In a way, I guess I did. Tears streamed down my face, but they weren't a product of grief or frustration.
Thank you,
I said between sobs.
I can't believe this.
Agent Schmidt patted my back and then pulled me to my feet.
Now these things take time. We can expedite the process, but it will still be a week before you're free.
A week is nothing compared to the rest of my life,
I said as I wiped the tears from my eyes.
I'm going to be free. Judy's family will finally know the truth. I can't believe it.
A smile spread across my face. Agent Warren went to the door and knocked on it. The warden stepped inside.
Are we all finished up then?
He asked.
Indeed,
Agent Schmidt told him.
Miller will need to be escorted back to his cell. We have much to discuss, Warden.
Time seemed to slow as one of the guards entered and put the handcuffs back on me. I felt as if I was floating while I walked back to my cell. The thought of visiting Judy's grave and saying goodbye carried me forward like a dream. I imagined myself visiting the cemetery with the same flower arrangement she had picked out for our wedding. I would lay them beside her headstone and beg her to forgive me. I knew it would be a teary affair, but with my name cleared, I might be able to spend the moment surrounded by my family. I'm innocent after all, and they would know the truth. I loved Judy dearly and never hurt her. I shambled forward as if I was in a daze. The dreams of tomorrow danced inside my head, and for the first time in a long time, I was happy.
What a sad sap that guy was.
Agent Schmidt laughed.
I can't help but feel a little sorry for him.
Every time we go into the field, you do the same thing.
Agent Warren shot back.
Do you get off on playing the good guy or something?
It's just my natural charm. I can't help if people trust me. I don't mean to interrupt.
The warden cut in.
But how should I direct my staff?
Agent Warren slid a briefcase towards the man.
I'm leaving,
she said.
You can direct him. I don't know if I can keep working with you, Schmidt. I feel dirty afterwards.
You said it yourself, Warren. We got a job to do. I've been doing this long enough to know civilians can't handle the truth. There's nothing wrong with peddling a little hope here and there.
The female agent's only answer was the rhythmic click of her heels as she left. Schmidt turned to face the warden and handed him the briefcase.
The cash for your services is in here. Remember to wipe the cameras and visitation logs once we leave. You'll also find a syringe with a B-class amnestic. You need to make sure Miller receives that today. Yes, sir. I can handle that. And about Miller, when will he be released? Did you not just hear me? You're dosing that man up with a powerful amnestic. He won't remember anything about today. He's just going to have to take the fall on this one. The Foundation can't afford to go public with information about an anomaly just to keep one man out of prison. Miller drew the short straw. It is what it is.
SCP-1299 is a white porcelain oversteel freestanding bathtub. It was discovered when the occupants at a house in Ohio experienced an unusually high rate of apparent suicides and murders via drowning. A news story on the anomaly brought the house to the Foundation's attention. The Foundation quickly suppressed all information regarding the crimes and secured the house in question. When a living human touches one of the two handles on SCP-1299, the tub will begin filling with water. Once the tub is filled, an invisible force, designated SCP-1299-1, will pull the subject into SCP-1299 and force the subject underwater. An imprint of a pair of hands will appear around the subject's neck while they attempt to escape. Barring outside intervention, the subject will invariably drown, at which point the water will begin to drain via unknown means until the containment chamber is completely dry. The corpse may then be retrieved safely. Hey guys, thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast for more SCP stories like this one. You can also check out some more episodes from the SCP Experience podcast here. I'll see you in the next one.